Rob's wound had reopened in the night, and there was blood caked to his chest hair and all over the pillow and bedding. He sighed and sat up. He winced at how stiff his entire body was. The wound was slowly weeping blood down his shoulder. He felt depressed. How could he do what he felt he must in his state? He had been bested before he had really even gotten started. He couldn't even get a night's sleep without being attacked. He had screamed in his dream, and from his bed after all. He'd been so sure he wouldn't. He felt so sure of himself for a change. There had been a change, though. He hadn't even gotten out of bed yet, and he was already remembering it all. He had beaten the killer. He had not just beaten him, he had destroyed him. He'd had total control, until the end. Then the dream itself had turned on him, but he had done what he needed to, and then some. He had baited the killer away from L.A., and had given him some extra incentive to come for him. He had insulted him. He hoped the killer screamed himself awake when he exploded. Sunlight was barely coming through the thick curtains, but it was almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Rob had gotten a good amount of hours of sleep. Despite the dreams, he felt rested. Not that he couldn't use more sleep to catch up on his sleep debt, but he was good to go on, as he needed to. If only his injuries wouldn't slow him down. He decided to deal with them right away. He showered again and got dressed, covering the worst of the damage, and went down to the front desk. There was a different clerk behind the counter. Rob asked him where the nearest drugstore was, and the clerk told him. It was close by. Rob got in the car and drove to it. It was in the same shopping center he had passed the night before. It wasn't exactly hustling and bustling, but it wasn't the ghost town he had seen earlier. He went in and began shopping. He went to the first aid aisle. The first thing he grabbed was painkillers. Ibuprofen looked like it was the best he could get without a prescription. Also, they wouldn't make him too drowsy and weak. He would pop 4 at a time, which was prescription strength. He thought about going to the sewing aisle to get a needle and thread to stitch the wound in his shoulder closed. He had seen people do it on TV. Before he left the first aid aisle, though, he spotted an advanced wound care package that contained adhesive closure strips. They looked like they would be a good substitute for stitches. He was relieved he would not be spending the night sewing his wound closed through gritted teeth. He was tough enough, but he was not sure he could really do it to himself over and over, going into one side of the skin and then out the other, maybe as much as 10 times. He had even thought about just duct taping it closed, but that didn't sound very practical or realistic. He needed it to get better and fast, so he would have to take good care of it. The package also came with waterproof bandages, antibacterial cream, and pads to cover the strips. That clinched it for him. He grabbed the package off of the shelf and threw it into the basket that he was carrying with his good arm. He also got a bottle of Jack Daniels, just in case the ibuprofen wasn't quite enough. It might help take the edge off. He wouldn't drink enough to get drunk. He needed to stay focused, and it was no time to party, but he might find some medicinal use for it. He had seen people pour it over their wounds on the road on television, but he figured the antibacterial cream should handle that part just fine. TV wasn't turning out to be as helpful in his scenario as he would have thought. He went to the grocery section and grabbed 2 TV dinners from the freezer. If television wasn't going to be much help, maybe the dinners for it could at least save him some cash and help fill him up. He grabbed some non-perishables for the road that he could eat after he left the hotel. The wonderful hotel. He had a faint memory of being told a story in school. Maybe it was one of those Greek fables, but it was about a man on a mission finding a paradise that was so perfect he didn't ever want to leave. The paradise in that way turned out to be the man's prison, and he had to overcome the temptations to get back to his less than perfect but healthy life and purpose. Rob couldn't remember what the story was called, or anything else about it really, but he could relate to that with the hotel. However, he didn't have naked ladies fanning him with palm fronds and feeding him grapes. He had a limited amount of money, and he could use it up fast staying in hotels like that, even if they were reasonably priced. He went back to his very temporary paradise to begin licking his wounds. He rubbed the cream on the shoulder and wiped off the excess. He pressed the wound as closed as he could, while each closure strip was applied and stuck on. He would hold his breath for the pain each time he pinched the flesh together. The sticky strips stayed in place easily. He only had to use 5 of them. The mouth of the wound was still open slightly, but it was no longer hanging open so drastically. He was able to totally close it together with his fingers, but the strips could only handle so much. Still, they did a good job for an over-the-counter remedy. If it didn't get much better soon, he would bite the bullet, and probably suture it shut. The reality of that thought still baffled him. It would be a lot to go through, but not as much as he had gone through already, and not as much as he probably still had to endure. He could do it if he had to, though. The strips seemed like they should be sufficient. He placed a gauze pad over the strips and then adhered it with a waterproof bandage. It looked like a nurse had done it. He was pleased. It still hurt like a bitch. He popped 4 of the ibuprofens. He shrugged and figured he could be a little hardcore with all of it, so he took a swig from the bottle of Jack to get the pills to go down. He had to take 2 more swigs to get them to stop sticking to his throat. He got them down and instantly felt the Jack working. He got up and popped a TV dinner in the microwave. He had eaten many of them since he had moved out, and more than his share while he had still lived at home. He knew they came out much better if you baked them in an actual oven, and the room had one, but he needed to eat with the pills, and he didn't care about his dining experience, even if he felt decadent in his surroundings. There was a room service menu, but it was pricier than what he needed. The TV dinners kept him feeling on track. He wanted to get another good night's sleep before he left to get back on the road. That would be his last indulgence. The killer didn't know where Rob was unless he was sleeping while Rob was awake, but Rob hadn't felt him at all. He had felt the killer's exhaustion when he had gone into him before he had gone back to L.A., and he figured the asshole was probably resting up too and regaining his strength as well. The killer had plenty of it to regain. Rob felt like a wet noodle that had dried on the stovetop. Still, he had a desire to get things over with, but on grounds where he didn't feel so vulnerable from having so much to lose. He wanted to have it out where he didn't care about what happened to the vicinity. There couldn't be other people around to get caught in the crossfire either. He would get that fucker. He still wasn't exactly sure, but he knew he had no real choice, so it was going to come to another showdown. The demons had revealed a real weakness in the killer. Although there was good reason to be scared, the killer was almost irrationally afraid of them. That had to be the answer. He would have that answer better fleshed out. That had been his intention all along. He would already have those answers if he hadn't had to turn around and start the whole trip over from scratch. If he drove non-stop the next day, he just might be able to get there without another day's delay. He was lucky his destination was in the same state. It could have been all the way across the world, and he had no passport, or even across the country. Maybe he would have gotten there faster then, since he would have traveled by plane. He wouldn't have been able to afford that, though. Last-minute plane tickets could cost through the roof. He also wouldn't have been able to make it back in time to get the killer out of Sue and Michelle's place. He had to call them. He had forgotten. He had accomplished the next step in his plan, which was to get the killer to stop focusing on their place to get to Rob. He had very successfully placed the northbound bait. None of that had been in his original plan at all. He had not counted on turning around and starting over, but in all the modification of the plan, he had learned valuable information on his opponent. Maybe it had worked out the way it was supposed to. Hopefully the next part would as well. He went to the phone and dialed Sue's number. It rang 4 times before the machine picked up. "This is Sue," he heard his best friend in the world say. "And Michelle," he heard his newer but equally important friend add on. "Leave a message after the beep." After the beep sounded, he said, "Hey, it's me, Rob. I know this thing cuts you off, so I'll be quick. I think it's safe for you to go home now. He's not after me in that place anymore. I'll explain more later. Everything is still fine." He looked down at his shoulder and continued. "Relatively. I'm okay. Hope you guys are doing okay. I'm still so sorry about all this. I love you guys. I hope to be where I'm going by tomorrow, so I should be back soon, after I take care of things somehow. I can't tell you where I'm going because it might not be safe yet for you to know. I can't wait to see you guys again." He started to choke up when a part of him wondered if he would ever see them again. "Anyway, I should go. Oh my God, your place! He was there. It's in bad shape. I'm so sorry." The machine clicked and cut him off. His time was up. He hung up the phone, a little defeated. "Oh, screw it," he thought. He picked the phone back up, pressed 9 and dialed out again. He could afford at least to warn them. He listened to the outgoing message again and heard the beep. "Hey guys, it's me again. I got cut off. I hate these machines. Anyway, look, the apartment got kind of trashed. I'm sorry about that. There wasn't time to clean up. Be ready for that when you open the door. The TV area got all broken. He might have done stuff in your bedroom. I didn't get a chance to look. I broke your lamp. I'll replace it when I get back. There might be some blood, but I'm okay." He started to wonder if his second message might just worry them more. "I'll wrap this up before I get cut off again. Just please feel safe in that place. He's not coming back for you. He's after me. It's okay, though. I'll handle it. Love you again. Talk to you soon and hopefully see you soon. Take care. Bye." He hung up. He really did hope they would feel safe in their own space after what all he had introduced them to. Rob wrapped up the night after he ate 2 dinners and watched some TV. He took 4 more of the painkillers before bed and had another few swigs of whiskey to help him sleep. That combo really did help with the pain. He flipped over the blood-crusted pillows to the clean side and rolled the sticky part of the sheet over like he was making a blood and linen burrito. As he was dozing with the lamp on and the TV was quietly telling him a story about the life that birds of prey lived, he realized he'd left the apple in the car. He hadn't had it the night before, and he had dreamt about them. He thought about maybe just drifting off and getting some more constructive info on his adversaries through the dreams. Then he thought against it. The demons were not conducive to getting a good night's sleep. Also, he needed a break from the killer. Maybe since he was connected to them, the apple might help keep the killer's all-seeing eye at bay as well. Rob threw off the comforter and put some clothes on and walked barefoot to the car. He got the apple from the passenger side and put the book on top of the drawing to hold it down. Then he thought of what would happen if someone broke into the car to steal the meager belongings. They weren't things of any financial value, but if they got stolen or vandalized, the loss would be immeasurable. He then put the drawing in between the book's pages and put it in the trunk. Then he began to wonder what to do if he walked into the parking lot tomorrow to find the car stolen. He had already locked it as much as he could. He told himself to stop it and tried to shut off his neurotic brain. He went back inside, got naked again, and got back under the covers. The pills were kicking in, along with the booze, and he wanted to be out before the buzz wore off. He didn't have anything in the room to cut the apple with, so he placed the whole uncut fruit under the top of the pillow. It wasn't under his head, so it wouldn't bother him. The wall would keep it from rolling out. If it didn't work that way, instead of being sliced, then he would deal with the dreams when they came. It was a half-assed precaution anyway. It could work, though. It still had the skin on it. Also, since it wasn't sliced, it wouldn't rot as fast and stink up the room.